Hey everybody, welcome to October 13th MakerDAO community call. My name is David Utrobin, and welcome to the call. Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody who is watching or here live with us or watching on the YouTube recording, wishing you guys a fine day. Today is going to be a fun one. We've just spent the last 15 minutes or last hour playing around with Crowdcast, realizing how weird it is. But this one is going to be good. So typically, if you're new, this call is used for kind of covering what the latest events that are happening in MakerDAO are. We typically go through the Maker Relay if we don't have any special guests or special functions planned. But today we have a special function, and so just to give a little bit of context, myself, David Utrobin, I work in something called the Community Development Department at the Maker Foundation, and the Community Development Department actually works to help bridge, people in the community, like freelancers, individuals, like everybody from designers, coders, to content writers, you name it. We try to bridge these individuals with becoming active in the actual MakerDAO community, in the protocol, right? We want them to create educational materials. We want them to become a part of the community, to like have impact, and also to do something that they're enjoying and loving. So like our job is really to kind of bridge people to understand what they can do in our community. And so for the last, I'd say, since really like January, Tim Black, who's one of these really awesome community members, he had spearheaded this thing called the CDIP process, which is a Community Development Initiative proposal. And we have had a ton of people actually submit them, get funded for their ideas, and a number of them have created a bunch of really cool stuff. And so what today's call is about is it's actually a demo day of a lot of these projects that came as a result of CDIPs. So, with that being said, I guess really quickly, I'm gonna run through the agenda. The first guest that we have on is Rejon and Tim, and they have been working on the redesigned community development portal. And if you don't know about it, well, you might remember the old community development portal, which was kind of Gitbooksy and very flat and very unidimensional, so to speak. But Rejon and Tim came through and really put some magic sauce on it. And so I'm going to invite both of them on screen, and I believe they have some really cool presentation to present to you guys. Cool.
Hello,
Hey.
Maker community.
What's up? All right, I guess I'm gonna leave it to you guys to introduce yourselves and all of that. I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay. I'll start considering we're sharing the same presentation, and I'll just do a very brief intro. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Black. I've been in crypto, well, as a hobbyist or enthusiast since 2013, and then professionally since 2018. I joined Maker's community last year, actually, because I was looking to pick up some work, and I just DM'd David. And at that time, that was the only way to do it. And now, as he so illustriously explained, we have CDIPs and grants and all sorts of wonderful things. Amy has taken over from Rich, our former head of community development, and we're in a bit of a flux, so we're always looking for new talent. And one of the ways to do that is through our portal, which Rejon is sharing the screen here with me as well, is our lead developer, alongside Shay Fitzgerald, our lead designer. And we're just basically going to do a little presentation about what we created for everybody. So with that, I am going to get one of my Chrome tabs going. All right. Cool. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, cool. Sweet. Alrighty. So we call this ComDev Portal Goodness because Gitbooks, as we mentioned, was a little unidimensional, but we wanted to make it a little bit more fly. And so our roadmap here is pretty simple. Like, where did we start? What did we learn? How did we put it all together? And then Rejon will take over the technology stack, the philosophy of how it's built, some of the design, and then give you guys the ultimate payoff. And so we call this a portal. But you really want to think of the community-development site as a hub for hosting programs, and it's all community-generated resources, right? So that improves the management, onboarding, and growth of MakerDAO as a whole, right? So you can think of the portal as like your interface to community development as a function. So who is it for? The portal mainly focuses on audiences that are looking to actively participate in MakerDAO or its community programs, as David mentioned before. They're usually folks who are new to MakerDAO and want to learn about the system sort of writ large in a less technical way. Our docs.makerdao.com are like spectacular, so that's not our focus in the portal. But ideally, it's folks who are also familiar with MakerDAO and looking for canonical specific answers about MakerDAO or ways to engage. And so the objective for the portal always, and it was a 2-year-old ticket in GitHub, was to make a platform that's more friendly for contributors, for content creators, and for ultimately developers to collaborate and easily engage. The other thing is that since MakerDAO is a global protocol, it works everywhere, you can't turn it off, we needed to solve for localization accessibility, different languages, like right off the bat. That's one of the things Rejon will dive into deeper. It can't be sort of like tacked on or like this weird widget. It can't be like nice to have. It needs to actually be fundamental to the architecture, which I can't wait for him to sort of talk about because it's really cool. And then the other thing is building on the friendliness and sort of robustness that Gitbook didn't give us is make it more visually appealing, which is where Shay Fitzgerald put in a lot of design work. And so that would be for things like supporting specialized embedding, making videos more viewable, adding callouts, buttons, just some styling. And so the most unique thing about our portal is that we had about 80 pages of Markdown files, and that was a lot of content. And so when we first embarked on this project, it was a content-first approach to putting this thing together. And so right here is a sitemap put together by Ryan Cordell, now at the Ethereum Foundation, who was one of our contributors who did a CDIP, as David mentioned. So he took all of those Markdown files and mapped them into a much more realistic reading of everything that was there. And now we have these simple headers, right? Learn, contribute, and funding. All of our pages were asking something of the reader, and we've reconfigured everything to fall under these action verbs, right? So learn gives you explanations of foundational maker concepts and then hubs you out to further reading. That might be some other resource like the Bitcoin white paper or the Ethereum yellow paper, right? Or it might just be something in docs.makerdao or the blog. Contribute gives you guides on best practices as a community development member, which remember is all of you. Everybody can be part of the MakerDAO community, right? It also gives some of our favorite common tools and sort of expectations of how to use this thing, and then how to be a part of community development in general. Funding is also guides on the process for applying for meetups, for example, which David runs, for CDIPs, which we talked about, and I'll do a presentation about later, for larger grants, and then for hackathons as well. And when we say community, we really do mean community. This is entirely built by community members. These are community generated resources, right? It was made 100% through grants, right? That's how community development runs, whether they're small or whether they're large, right? So our content team, development team, design team, everybody went through the grants process. And with that, it's development time, and I'm going to stop sharing.
Good morning, everybody. Give me a second to share my screen with you. Here we go. Bada bing, bada boom. Sweet, awesome. So, hello everybody. I'm Rejon. I was the lead developer and architect for the development execution for our new portal, whether that be 2.0 if you're new here, that'll be the 1.0 for you. I'm known around these parts as the mad scientist Maximum Crash. And what that mad scientist moniker means is I come from a lot of different backgrounds. By day, I am a front-end full-stack developer at a biotech startup called Cascade. And by night, I make video games, do graphic design, mobile development, you name it. So it's TLDR kind of that I've been around the block a little bit. But here today, with you. I'm here to talk about the community portal, or if you're a Stanley Kubrick fan of Dr. Strangelove, how I learned to stop worrying and love Markdown. So a little bit of a preface to the work that we did today. I was tapped to lead the portal after handling off some of my work with the transparency dashboard, grants.makerdao.com. And there was an outcry of these existing issues with the portal that we had previously, where there was use of Docusaurus or GitBooks, meant that there was a forced or more strict directory structure, which means from a non-technical standpoint that your folders can only be in a very specific order, or they would make the folders in the order that they wanted to make them in, which led to a lot of, it takes a lot of control away from us to be able to set up the routes we want. However, the next problem that we had was with translations. Not as large of an issue. However, when it comes to considering more complicated languages, especially languages that read right to left, including those in these kinds of services is way more difficult just because they're not thought about from the jump. There were also major blockers on creating more complex components, so videos, touts, buttons, kind of anything that a content creator would have liked to provide to a video is kind of, to an article or to a page is kind of locked off behind whatever these services can provide, or they would have to find a very specialized developer to solve this problem. The list kind of goes on from there if you've used these other kind of technologies. However, the objectives were pretty clear from the jump. We need to leverage a framework that creates a launch pad for content creators and developers to collaborate in. And what that means is we needed a framework that the developers and the content creators were speaking the same language. That way it's faster for folks to collaborate, and it's faster for folks to fix problems or to create new things and provide new content to the community. The second is that the MakerDAO community is global. We can't just keep thinking with a US based mindset with how we develop these things. Instead, we need to solve for localization accessibility out the gate. That way it's not a nice to have, it's not a sprinkle on top. It is a core piece, a core feature of this product. The next is that the content directory or whatever will contain all of our content for the site, it has to be decoupled from the logic that makes the site work. That way it's possible for you to say, do a major migration of all of your content without having to worry about, it might break the site, or we can't migrate this site. Somebody has to go through by hand and pick out hundreds of pages. The next is that the new framework must support more advanced components. That way there's not really any limitations of what we could execute from a technological standpoint. So if a content creator or somebody in the community says, I would really love a component that did this, developers have more opportunities to say yes and explore those options without having to look down the rabbit hole of these existing services to see if they should have to hack together a solution that would take more time and cost essentially a lot more money to build. And transferring of the legacy content should be a breeze. We have to keep in mind that we still have hundreds of existing pages that a lot of people really rely on to do the work they do every day. So ensuring that we could wrap all of these up in a nice package is a big ask. So this is, when we talk about it, it's easy to talk about, it's easy to use, but it would be extremely difficult to execute. There's not really a free-ish modern day content platform or any really content management system or a CMS that really supports this, at least that I could find. If you do find one, let me know. I would love to talk with them. But this is like a dream CMS, right? Somebody came to us and said, we have this crazy idea and we want to do all these 10 things. We have this giant list of really impossible asks to really put together to create this dream scenario of a content management system. Because we're talking about giving more control to our content creators to control all of the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. No having to go tap a developer to be able to put a new page in, for example. We're talking about an extremely low skill ceiling for getting started. So that way, anybody that's new to the community, whether they be more technically versed or whether they're completely new to crypto and they're here just getting started, getting their feet wet in our community, they should still be able to contribute. We're also talking about low friction for creating new content, adding new features, making the site look however you want. If Shay or another designer comes in and says, I think we could make a component that looks like this, or bring some flair to this area. It's creating more opportunities for us to say yes instead of saying no. That way we have the flexibility to build the portal that we want, that really emphasizes on the values of our community. We also wanted to make sure that the content was as portable as possible. I keep talking about legacy content, but essentially we don't want to get locked into any system that we end up creating with the content. That way, if one day somebody says, oh, some of the tools that we're using, some of the frameworks we're using aren't really hitting for us, but we want to save the content. Everybody works so hard on this. You should be able to just take that, migrate it without any concerns. So the stack that we use to make this dream a reality, we have GitHub kind of as a base of operations. This is the place where all of our conversations, where our history will happen, where issues will pop up. This is the space in which the community collaboration from a technical standpoint starts. For the rest of our stack, though, internally, we are using Gatsby. Has fantastically expandable build pipelines. GraphQL is built in through the use of Sift. Tons of plugins. We can even make our own if wanted. And it's geared exactly for this use case because Gatsby is a static site generator, and we are building a site that should only update when content has been changed. We are leveraging DAO, built by the wonderful folks at the developer experience team of MakerDAO. And by extension, we're using ThemeUI since DAO is a theme package that sits on top of ThemeUI. And by extension of using ThemeUI, we're also using emotion.sh, which is a CSS and JS extension. And then we're also leveraging the bread and butter, the cream de la croix of this project is MDX. It's Markdown Extended or Markdown Extreme. Not sure where you want to go with the acronym, but essentially it is our Markdown engine that allows us, or allows rather our content creators, to write content in Markdown and interweave that with React components, which means that you now have a writing language that is as technically expandable as writing JSX, but interwoven with the simplicity of writing with Markdown. The line of thinking there is that if you can write a GitHub comment or you can write a GitHub issue, you can make a page on our website. We are also leveraging lunar.js internally, part of our build pipeline with Gatsby, as it's a really fantastic static search index builder. Where it can run through our entire content directory and then have that available as search on our site without having to touch anything like Algolia or any other search engines. And then I also built a custom translation module inspired by i18 Next and a couple of my old previous projects in hopes of building something that works really well with our flexible content stack. So the things that this stack solves for is the directory interfacing through Gatsby's GraphQL API. This means that developers who are working more closely to site code and not content get to touch or tap into some of the front matter variables that are provided through Markdown files. So if we wanted something more customizable by content creators, we can build more features into their Markdown files. GitHub also is going to serve as our source of truth. It's kind of where everything will start and where everything will end. So there's a clear path or pipeline for how things will work. We also built a number of actions that make it easy for this community to collaborate and communicate on any new work that is coming in. DAO maintains a design bridge of communication between the foundation and the community. Essentially, because DAO is built internally and leveraged throughout our community, it essentially creates a consistent means of colors and themes and icons from which other MakerDAO community projects or CDIPs may essentially bridge off of. And the portal happens to be one of the largest to use it today. And then MDX, I've already gushed about it, but it allows us to interweave Markdown with React. And if you're a React developer, you can only imagine the I guess, the possibilities that come from that, because this is where we get to expand upon the bigger ask for different kinds of components and where we can interweave buttons and markdown, which isn't something that's entirely possible. And it also means that our content editors whose previous experience is writing in HackMD for Git books, they don't have to learn a new language. They don't have to change how they work. Essentially, if you know Markdown, or even if you know how to write free text, you're kind of already as powerful as you need to be to write content for our site. However, there's a little bit of a trick of the play there. There is a conflict in the architecture and the philosophy of its execution. You would think typically a UI engineer would be the one to handle all the designs and handle all the content. They would take them and integrate them into the site, except the way that this is developed or architected, it's no, I'm not writing the website, you're writing the website. Instead, front-end engineers essentially become tools developers, where we're now doing maintenance or creating and developing new tools for our content creators to leverage. We have a base platform and everything is built up from there. However, there's definitely some bells ringing in some folks' heads about this. Gatsby is not forever, nor is MDX, right? There's a big issue with locking our content into very specific frameworks, where we don't want to say, okay, everybody's using MDX, everybody has React interwoven with Markdown. What does that look like for migrations? Essentially, there's going to be a little bit of nitpicking with having to remove things if they do go back to a Markdown specific system. However, that would just be as simple as writing a regex find lookup for anything that contains any greater than or less than brackets with a slash at the end. So what that really means is, the minimum requirements for these architectural design decisions is that Markdown format for all of the content. Content can be rendered in a non-React environment. What you see is what you get, and we don't go any further than that. We don't keep any secrets with our content creators. They are in complete control of everything. And this is also a somewhat frictionless workspace. Working with open source technologies is always a gamble. I took a big chance with MDX. I'm really, really excited with the work that they've been doing, and they continue to pour out updates in that community. But essentially, by leveraging MDX as our Markdown engine, we can guarantee at least an anchor point from which people can build content off of. So, the minimum requirements for a collaborator on this kind of project is, has experience writing content in Markdown, which is very easy to get started with, has a GitHub account, has a base understanding of version control. That way it's easier for folks to collaborate with each other. Please have fantastic communication skills. We're a community. We gotta talk. React experience is a super nice to have. And the reason why I make this point last is because there's a little bit of a downplay. There's a little bit of I would say backwards thinking, where this architecture, or the way that it's designed, is almost a secret silent on-ramp for content creators to become web developers. The more a content creator will want out of our MDX system, the more of a front-end developer they become. Essentially, the more writing content is the same as writing code for our site, which essentially means knowledge is power. The more of a React background you have of leveraging the tools we create, or creating your own tools for this portal, essentially makes you, just like myself, a top-level tools developer in the portal. If somebody has an idea, somebody wants to connect to an API, somebody wants some kind of form, somebody wants a wizard, somebody wants a carousel. As long as you have the knowledge to execute your idea, you essentially have all the power to make it a reality in our system. However, that doesn't mean we lock out anybody who's not as technically versed. That doesn't mean if you don't know React, you're not welcome here. It's more so like we use React more so as a means of creating a space for conversations between our content creators and our developers. So you could say this project is a little bit auto magical because it builds a lot of things for us. It has this wonderful build pipeline out of Gatsby. It handles all the header through the front matter. It handles all the side nav automatically, and that comes at a cost, right? There's nothing is free, as you may say. So the lift has to go somewhere. While this project may seem like a miracle built on wheels because it's breathing, it's live, it's out there. I believe we have the link posted in the chat here. But essentially, it has a really, really bad case of build time entropy. And this is a little problematic, only more so because the more content you have, the longer it takes to build. And with the way that a lot of CDN services, like say Netlify or now.sh, where part of their business strategy and the pricing is through build minutes, this can become a crutch, especially if you have hundreds and hundreds and maybe one day thousands of pages. It's an unavoidable crutch. This is something that I imagine most folks will run into with any content management system they have. But however, I do believe that the space that we're in and the way that we have it optimized is kind of the best case scenario for our community because of all the features that it gives us, not just from an API or a platform specific focus of using Gatsby, but more so from the fact that we also create a base of, I would say, you could almost say there's a culture to working in this portal or working with this portal or reading this portal. So there's a lot more to cover. I could talk about this for hours and hours, but you can find most of my in-depth writings and the pull requests on our repo. I've written about 230 pull requests that are about 3 paragraphs long. You could say I've written The Great Expectations by Charles Dickens by now. However, I've also written a ton of other stuff, and I hope to expand more so about this later as I start to take this project and hopefully in the next couple of weeks make it open source for other folks to have a starter with. So if you're around our community, if you're new to our community, please stay tuned. I will definitely be dropping that by the end of this month. But with that, thank you for listening. You could reach me at maximum_crash on Twitter or just at Rejon on Rocket Chat. And with that, I will leave it to my host.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Rejon. That was really fascinating. So, like, I'm not a developer, and the way that you explain things, it's kind of I kind of see it. Like, it really is a secret on ramp because when I've been playing with MDX, it's like, oh, like slowly the things are clicking in my head. Like, okay, now I kind of understand like the general like workarounds for almost any language in code. It's you kind of get the basics. You kind of get those first principles. And yeah, it's really cool. It's also pretty comfortable to work with. There's like a cheat sheet in there, so like you can see like the really easy ways to add the different React components inside of MDX itself. And so yeah, man, thank you. You've been a total legend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so with that, I'm gonna let you go. And and so next we had the Forum Badges program, which actually, unfortunately, Aaron couldn't make it. But Aaron did record. Oh, Scott is here. Yeah, cool. So I'm gonna, assuming Scott is ready, I'm happy to give it over to Scott. I'm gonna invite you to the screen, Scott. And yeah, and we could talk a bit about it because the forum badges are really cool. They I'll give you guys kind of like a small prompt or a small bit of context about them. They are basically getting Web3, NFT badges that you can like claim on chain and have on chain. Integrated with a Web 2 interface, which is the Maker Forum. And what's really cool about this is that, if you're a person in the community, you can kind of, in a private way, uh, uh, claim a bunch of badges that you actually earned, like voting in 100 governance portals or 50 governance votes, or 10 executive votes or whatever. And those badges show up next to your name on the forum. And what this does for the people that you're talking with on the forum is give an air of legitimacy. Like, oh, this person votes. That means their opinion should be like, considered like a little bit more seriously than the person that has almost. So it gives a level of like credentials to the community, which I really find gives an overall better level of depth. So with that, I'm gonna give it over to Scott. What's up, man? How you doing?
How's it going?
You know, another day in the life. Can't
Yeah,
complain. So
I'm
Scott,
definitely not near as prepared as Rejon was. So
nah. This is laid back. You know how the community calls are. We could totally even just screen share and go into the forum and just like look
sure.
around. Yeah. So it's all you, man. So I guess maybe your like first question, like who? So it was you and Aaron primarily working on it. How did it like start off, and like how long did it really take you guys to get into production?
The idea came from Lix originally, wanting to reward people for governance and hopefully getting people more active in that way to participate. The NFTs have been a real challenge trying to figure out the best way to award them. Should Maker award them directly? Should we let people claim them? There's different ways that you can implement it. Some of them are gas intensive for the entity awarding them. Some of them are centralized. So we went with Merkle rewards similar to, or Merkle airdrops similar to how the Unidrop was done. And so we put all of the addresses that are available to claim into a Merkle tree and then put that on chain so that you can redeem it that way.
Yeah,
There are
fascinating.
some challenges that we can check actively, so we're checking those. If you are currently voting on a poll, then you can use that as your redemption also.
Oh wow. Wait, so
And
if you're currently voting, like if you're currently voting on a poll that's not closed, and you go and you hit that redeem badges button, you get a special badge for being in an active vote. Is that, am I understanding that right?
it's just the same first, like if you haven't voted on your first poll proposal, it's an executive proposal, not a poll. So if it's
Oh,
on
got it.
your first spell, then you would be able to redeem that badge. If you haven't voted on it and you're not in the tree before that, you wouldn't have to wait for us to add you to the Merkle route.
Oh, I get it. Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then, yeah, the forum integration leverages the service that's identifying those participants. And so then you can go into your settings inside of the forum, and there's a little import badges button here at the bottom where you sign a message that sends your username just to the backend service that looks at the badges that you can get, and then it will ping the forum and let you know I've already claimed all these badges, so I don't have any to redeem, but then it would show up with the badges that I have available to redeem. And then they start to show up on your profile, and then you can select them to show and use them as your title,
Very
and then
cool.
it shows up when you post.
Nice. So I know a lot of the questions around this project have been with regards to like not letting out your Ethereum address to the public, or like being able to basically, you know, claim your badges, have them associated with your forum account, but not give away the address you used to sign the message to redeem them. Is there any like, can you talk a little bit more about kind of the privacy stuff in mind that you and Aaron had?
Sure. Yeah, on the back end, we're not storing any of the address stuff. We're taking the signature that you're passing from signing that message and just grabbing the username out of it and then just confirming the address that's been passed, but we're not saving any of that data. We ping the badges endpoint directly on the forum, so it's not being passed back to the forum or anything, or saved inside the forum with your username.
That's very good to know. Cool. Very sweet. So, do you envision a way that somebody can, like, in passing, go on your forum account, or like even into like anything, like and kind of reverse engineer? Like, there's really almost no way to get your Ethereum address in that sort of
In the
way.
current iteration, no. We've been exploring different ways that you could log in with your MetaMask into Discourse, so that would obviously tie it a lot closer, but
Right.
in the current iteration, no.
Right. Gotcha. All right,
Sorry.
sweet. Yeah, no, it's good. I was helping your bandwidth. I was like, I also closed my video, so cool. Anyway, yeah, that's really fascinating, man. If anybody here is a regular user of the forums, I highly suggest you check out that functionality, because it is really fun to have a bunch of badges next to your name when you comment. It's like, it makes you feel like a bit of a boss. But I'm being facetious, of course. But yeah, cool. So if, by the way, throughout this demo day, feel free, anybody in the chat, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to give comments. I'm happy to relay them to anybody who's presenting on your behalf. And so yeah. But yeah, with that, Scott, I think that more or less covers badges, right? Yeah, cool. All right, so the next, so I'm gonna, oh, actually, Akiva has a question. What if I'm an active forum user, but not an active blockchain user? Oh, then you got no skin in the game, baby. Sorry.
Yeah, you'll get that cred.
You don't get that cred. Shots fired, yeah, exactly. Oh, man. All right, cool. So, could be maker whale badges, but none currently, huh? It's a call for, yeah. Well, exactly, right? Like, so if you're on the forum and you're very active, and you haven't redeemed badges, like, I guess people, like, certain people won't ever redeem badges just for privacy reasons and, like, whatever. And, like, I'm sure people in our community will respect that. But if you are an active contributor and you do have some level of, like, on, verified credentials, like, hey, this guy voted on 100 different governance polls, it's like that, that gives a certain weight to your opinion that I think is important in like decentralized communities. But yeah, so with that, I believe the next 10 minutes will be devoted to CDIPs, actually. So community development improvement proposals. So let Scott go here, and I believe Tim Black is gonna get on. So uno momento. All right, invite sent. Tim is accepting and connecting, and now Tim is on screen. So Tim, I'm gonna give it over to you.
Hello, it me again. How's everyone doing? I'm actually glad we're running out of time because there's another presentation I have to give. We'll do that later because after this, Tom will come on and talk about how we're going to talk about all these things in general. But right now, I'm just going to share my screen and do a really brief presentation on what CDIPs are, right? Name TBD, I guess, because they're in progress. So let me share my screen with this guy.
And I'm right here, Tim. I just minimized my video, so.
Cool. All good. Presentation all right? Yeah,
yes, sir.
Looks good.
Looks
all
good.
right. So CDIPs, we're going to talk about what, when, and how to use them, and basically what they are. We're going to talk about where we are now. We've been working on this process for about 6 months, and we're going to basically overview who they're for. This actually was a presentation that would talk about development grants, but I decided to turn that off because it's going to get confusing. So we can just ignore that part. So I'm sure you're all wondering what this acronym means. It's a community development initiative proposal as opposed to improvement because, why not be just different than everybody else since everything is MIPS and YIPS and anything, whatever. It rhymes, who cares? You can basically think of a CDIP as a micro grant for ideas, right? So CDIPs are a robust and lightweight framing tool. They make your life easier when you have an idea. And so there's for mostly small, tightly scoped projects, right? There are some heuristics around this, but the thought or the program is essentially set up to be like, I have an idea and I need some money to make it really happen, and here's the milestones for doing it, and here's how it comes in. It's really just a document framework, right? The heuristics for funding a CDIP or getting them going are around a budget of 5K or less. Should take maybe 2.5 months. Most people in our MakerDAO community are part-timers, right? They have other full-time jobs, they have other things they do. So hopefully they can rope in a couple of friends, maybe 2 or 3 people, scope down on a couple of milestones and sort of hammer it out. Badges turned out to actually be 4 CDIPs and 2 teams. So they're flexible. They're just heuristics. One person can do one project, or 10 people could do something that takes 6 months and they just do it 2 hours a week. It's very, very flexible. That's the whole point. CDIPs are broken down into this document framework with roles inside of it, right? And so if you have an idea and you want funding to deliver that idea, then that makes you a contributor. If you like that idea and you want the responsibility to help frame, check in, update the rest of the team, we have a Wednesday sync where we talk about CDIPs. If you want to support that team, if you want to solve problems, help scope next steps, and just be the person to check in and make sure the project's on track, that we call those people advisors. And then if you are like Amy, David, myself, and Juan, and you control the budget and want to see an idea succeed, then that makes you an approver. Our hope is to grow the scope of these roles, have people apply to be advisors, tap other people in the community who have done CDIPs before and let them be an advisor to a new one, right? And so this scales as a program, which is like kind of amazingly wonderful. And so when someone has an idea, when do you want to use a CDIP? It's when it's sort of specific and it's kind of a measurable idea, right? It's sort of quick and clear. The timeline is obvious about how long it should take. There isn't too much research up front. We had someone ambitiously come in and say they wanted to build an org chart tool, which was massively awesome, but it turned out to be like a huge scope and it just kept expanding. So it didn't actually fit in a CDIP. It was more like a grant. Ideally, if you're going to execute on your idea, the skills required are in your wheelhouse. It's something you feel pretty capable of doing. And ideally, your idea aligns with the ComDev mission for now, right? Community development. But CDIPs are built to be scalable, and hopefully we can expand this out as part of a micro-granting program for the whole community or see where it goes. Remember, it's only 6 months old, so it's pretty straightforward. You just fill out the CDIP. It's a GitHub issue template. It's also a document framework. It's going to be pinned to the top of community development. It's just a Google Doc. You make a copy, you fill out all the questions in bold, and then you find someone to help you usher you through the process. It's super open-ended. The project planning is basically built into it. So as you fill in this doc, which takes maybe 5-10 minutes or something like that, some people have taken a lot longer, you basically scope your idea by finishing it. And check-ins are built in as an expectation, but that really comes down to you, the contributor, with your idea and how you want to talk about it. And so this link is just our page. I don't know if you can actually see both of those links, so I'll drop the link back inside of there, but it takes you to our portal, which we discussed earlier. There's a couple of pages in there that explain how CDIPs function and how they look. There's basically a very simple outline to this, right? There are just 3 stages. There is submission, execution, and completion. And so that gives you a full end-to-end experience of going from an idea to presenting it on a demo day like this, or putting it into a Wednesday call when community development comes together. I also went pretty granular in this process. If you want to click through, I'll share the link to this presentation, and you can see a Figma where I broke out all the tangents you could go out on and brought it back to those simple 3 stages. They break down into 3 subcomponent statuses within them as well. So when in doubt, there's probably 3 stages or 3 components that you're thinking of, right? And on top of it, inside of the portal, we also made a really clear visual guide. So that helps you stay on track. You basically have whatever you're doing on your project in one screen, and then you've got like a map that you can go back and refer to anytime you need it. And so these links here take you to a Google Doc. They take you to that visual guide that I mentioned, which is a Figma. And then it also takes you to another Google Doc about what to expect. And so we've broken down this whole process into a pretty straightforward thing, because it is straightforward. If you have an idea, there should be like a pretty quick way to execute on it. We review CDIPs usually twice a month in community development, and we can't wait to see more. And so with that, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, sweet, man. That was really good.
Right on.
That was a super sped up version of the fuller presentation that I had the pleasure of witnessing a few weeks ago. That was really good. That was really good.
We've talked about them ad nauseum. I expect to talk about them for the next year. The long-term plans is actually to basically automate these and turn them into a community tool. And so ideally it would be the kind of thing that we can start embedding in different places. People can use them in different ways, and it's like using some GitHub actions and other stuff like that. And it just, it's the kind of thing that people feel excited about in the space. They come in, they're like, oh, I got a CDIP, and then I'm going to apply for a grant. Now I'm going to go and join this team. You know, it's the kind of thing that just really falls in line with what community development does, which is just like incubate talent, make a talent flywheel, and ship them out wherever they go. So that's how it is.
Exactly. It's really powerful. Like, this whole framework is just basically a very, very lightweight grant program, right?
Exactly.
Like, you use the form to really lay out your idea, and actually in completing the form, it helps you clarify your idea, because a lot of people have ideas, but they're not really like fleshed out and drawn out to the point where you could receive funding from somebody who's offering it, right? And so, like, yeah, Tim, you've done an absolutely fantastic job, like, putting this together over the last, like, basically 6 to 8 months. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes and continues to go, and where it's going to be applied, because it's not just here in community development. Like, this can be actually adopted and, like, slightly rebranded to be a proposal tool pretty much in any of the MakerDAO like domain teams, and really even outside of MakerDAO, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's built to scale. Frank asks if a CDIP can be measured by a DAI amount, 10K versus 200 DAI needed to execute it. The answer is not really. CDIPs are essentially supposed to be there to help you scope your milestones. The real key is that it's like small enough for you to really nail it. That's kind of how it goes. And so if you need 10K for a budget of like 7 people operating on a team, but the whole thing is heavily coordinated and it really makes a lot of sense down to like the calendar invites, that sounds pretty good. And again, this is a young program, right? Sometimes, David or I have to serve as an advisor and an approver, which gets weird sometimes, right? So that's why we're hoping to scale it up and have more people. We've got some buy-in from the Maker Foundation themselves. They have community leads. One of them is doing Indonesian translations, right? So it's a very young program, and we're trying to just like get the opportunity to like remove the clunkiness and get rid of some of the friction. And so some of that is like getting a CDIP for like 15K and Amy being like, that's a grant. And we'll be like, is it though? And then just have to like have that conversation because there's no right answer. So
Right, exactly. And also, like, for smaller CDIPs, like, even to add to what Tim is saying, smaller CDIPs, like, require a little bit less, like, accountability, right? When you're giving a lot more money, there's just a lot more detail required, there's a lot more follow-up required, there's a lot more kind of checks required just to make sure that, the person who is being granted this money is responsible and actually fulfilling on the idea, right? And so, yeah, CDIPs are a really good kind of lower end granting tool, basically. Like Tim said in the presentation, it's up to around 5K. Past 5K, it might 6K. Okay, it still might be a relatively small idea. It might fit into the scope. When you start getting into like the higher numbers, you should already be considering like, all right, is this maybe a more serious like software project? Is this like maybe a more serious like what is this? Like am I applying for the right funding here, right? Should I go to the development grants, for example? But yeah, totally, man, totally. So yeah, if you guys have questions about it, feel free to. Okay, bye bye. Feel free to ask us about it in the community development chat. And so, with that, I believe we have about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna give it over to Tom DeMichael. I'm gonna invite you to the screen right now. You should be able to come on. And so Tom is going to talk a bit about the GovComms working group, or generally speaking, like community marketing / messaging, I believe. Yeah, sorry. GovComms is like a slightly separate thing. But yeah, I see Maker is connecting, and yeah, there you are. What's up? What's up, Tom?
Hello, everyone.
What's up?
I'm Tom, and one of the community development peoples, and I specifically am part of the messaging team. And I'm going to give you a rundown of what messaging is and what it means and how it ties back to all those dope projects that came before. It's going to keep it simple, and so let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's share the right one only.
Yeah, and I believe
Cool.
Tim said we're gonna do
100% vote on
GovComs next time, so just a heads up for those of you guys listening. Anyway, Tom, it is all yours.
Cool. Let me start at slide number 1. Cool. Well, like I said, it's the community messaging team. It's basically a marketing function for community development. What a little bit of background is we kept coming out with these CDIPs, and then every single one we'd be like, well, how do we just solve discoverability on this? So like everything we created, we kind of wanted to figure out, we needed like a mini marketing function for, and that meant that every project, no matter who was working on it, had to like become their own marketing team. So I have a background in marketing, and so do a few other people who are on this like little team we developed. And so kind of the idea was born out of this, hey, if we create a blueprint, if we create a framework for getting for marketing for each project for in general, then there can be a team who gets a message out about the project instead of having each project try to do it. So this team currently is Anna, myself, Jerry, and Tim. And let's move on. All right, just real quick, going to go through this agenda. You can tell I stole Tim's template here. What is the messaging team? What does messaging team do for community development? What has messaging done so far? Examples and current proposals. And okay. So like, what is the messaging team? ComDev has a lot of projects, and it's our responsibility to get the message out. We get the message out, messaging team, we get messages out. So for example, you have the badges program, super dope. You'll stumble across it when you go on the forums, or if you talk to someone, or if like you know someone. But maybe how do we get that out to a broader audience? How do we make sure everyone in the maker community knows about it? That's kind of our job, right? So how about the portal? Same thing. You can stumble across it online, or you can kind of like be told about it. It's our job to tell you about it. How do we tell people about that? What do we actually do? Yeah, like SEO, site maintenance, improving the messages on the site, Twitter posts, blog posts, Reddit posts, forum posts, post and rocket chat, PR articles, outreach to media, press kits, videos, specific projects like marketing campaigns. Like we have this cool thing called Humans of MakerDAO. You're saying like, why haven't I seen it yet? Well, because we're pretty new and we're still getting the framework together. That said, we have done a few things so far. CDIP 11, that was us building a framework. See, we're utilizing the CDIP model here. So Tim was just talking about. CDIP 27, we did a go-to-market strategy for the portal. We'll be rolling it out soon. You should be seeing that. CDIP 26, Humans of MakerDAO. That is this other marketing project I was talking about. Not fully rolled out either, but these things are all dope. I promise you're going to be super psyched when you see it in the wild. Lots more planned for sure. Here's like some of the stuff we have going on. We have a maker governance. We have like a little arm of the messaging team, and it's the maker messaging team. And so we got like, just like that's one example there. We have a content calendar, which you can see in the background. That's how we're sort of like organizing our workflow. We got a marketing plan below. It's super exciting to look at, I know, but just kind of want to show off some of the stuff we're doing in the background. And then we're also utilizing a new decision-making framework that ComDev has been working on in general. So it's kind of like a decision-making framework for DAO. And we've been utilizing that to move forward with our overall marketing plan and to hopefully create some ComDev-owned channels just to better be able to get the word out. And then as you can see, we have like Grammarly and notes making the screenshot just look dope. And then little ending slide here so we can stop after this. But, how are we going to achieve our goals? You have this little cool blip here about content marketing. Content marketing is a strategic approach focused on creating, distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience. Yes, very true. And I could go into this whole thing on like a marketing presentation and funnels and stuff. But hey, I just really actually want to keep this like super simple because sometimes people are confused on what we do because we haven't put out much yet. But like, yeah, messaging team gets the message out. Did you do a CDIP? Do you have something cool that you want to talk about? We get the message out. Thank you.
Nice, Tom. Thank you so much, man. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
exactly. Like marketing is so important because like I guess it gets a bad rap because it's very like corporatized. Like you hear the word marketing and you think, oh, like this is a group of people trying to like manipulate the audience into like falling down the funnel and like doing stuff. But really, like it's very organic in what we're doing. Like we are trying to attract the people that would be attracted to Maker, right? We're trying to ultimately build the volume of people in the community that are engaged, aware, able to give good feedback, able to even create more CDIPs, create more value in the community, and overall, like it's a very important part of scaling the things that we're doing. It's communicating about them. Like we have how many different projects, and there's all this noise in the space. It really is an art to communicate effectively about each one of them in a way that and that not only explains what we're doing, but also like really gets people excited about what we're doing and gets people to be like, hey, like I want to also like do that. And so yeah, Tom, thank you so much for spearheading this with Anna and Jerry and Tim, and you guys have been killing it.
Thank you, David. Yeah, and that was well said. Yeah, I think that the key here is that the messaging team. It's about getting the message out about what we do at ComDev. It's not just about like marketing and branding Maker. There's already a function for that.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. Well, thank you, Tom.
Cool.
I'm gonna let you go, and
All right.
then
I'm gonna
I guess. Oh no. Okay. And then I guess for the last like 2 minutes here, I'm gonna I guess Tim, do you want to come on and do like a little outro with me and talk about what we might do with the GovComs bit? All right, cool. Because I know governance communications is a really, really cool working group that has been around for a little bit, and I definitely don't want to. I want it to be mentioned a little bit. Yeah, so go for it, Tim.
Yeah, it's a good transition from Tom. So you can think of the messaging team as sort of the umbrella in which there are different initiatives to be messaged about. One of those is the problem space of governance communications. I'm sure everyone has seen the relay, at least a little bit. Hopefully, if you haven't, check out Maker Relay. It's a tag on the forum. It's also in the updates category. It should be there all the time, but it's basically
It's
our
also
weekly
in
update.
this button right here. This
Oh
button,
yeah, right in the button in
right
Crowdcast.
there.
You are correct.
Literally, if you're watching this live, there's a button, green button right
click
here.
on it.
Just click on it.
Yeah, so Maker Relay is produced by a team of people who have overlap with the messaging team, but not entirely. And we're planning on putting up a MIP13 declaration of intent here soon. And I was going to do a presentation about what that team does, but we'll have to do that on another community call, which is totally fine. And maybe by then we'll actually have that submitted. But we're taking our time to make sure that we understand the direction that we're going to take in that problem space, as that's what sort of domain teams eventually do. And so considering Maker Relay as an experiment, we're conducting a few more. We just want to sort of make it known to governance that we want to sort of start to experiment with speaking on their behalf and speaking to governance. But it's a hairy problem, and I have a presentation about it, so we'll talk about it at another time.
Right on. Thank you so much, Tim. And with that, it's 1 p.m. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Well, it's 1 p.m. for me. It's the top of the hour for many of you. And so with that, I hope you all have a really fantastic Tuesday, and we will see you next Tuesday, or in the chat, or in the forum. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. We definitely did. So take care.